I think is just surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. That's pushed me a lot. Being a part of just being, you are who you surround yourself with is so true. We're not going to outgrow the environment we're in. And so being around people that inspire you and that are where you want to be is going to push you probably more than anything, because you're just going to feed off of their energy.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Own Your Education podcast. I am here with James Amezcua. James is one of our instructors at Sales Dojo. And so we've been super excited to bring him in. Crazy that this is the first time we've met in person.
I know, we've been working together now for months, and first time. You're taller than I actually. Bro, you're tall.
I appreciate that. I know, apparently I have like a short Zoom presence. I don't know how to fix that.
But. I don't know, yeah. But it's nice to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think you're a stud. You've taught, how many cohorts have you taught for us now?
This is the third now.
Third cohort?
Yep, third cohort, yep.
Okay. So crazy that we haven't met already. So this is awesome. Yeah. Thanks for making the time to come in. I'm super, super excited to have you.
Thanks for having me, man. Glad to be here.
Well, a little intro about yourself. Make sure you cover anything I missed, but sales director at a software company called Lift Local.
Yep.
I've been there for about 6 years, it looks like now. Is that right?
Yes, 6 years. Yep.
And were you first sales rep on the team, or?
Not quite. I was the third. So yeah, when I joined, it was 3 salespeople, 1 marketing person, and 1 kind of like executive assistant. And now we're a lot bigger than that. So yeah, I joined like very early stages company and helped scale the team.
Heck yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Well, other than that, sales director at Lift Local, major golfer.
Big time golfer.
How many rounds did you get in this year, do you think?
Oh, I don't know. A lot, but still not enough. Yeah. I mean, I golf. I try to golf at least twice a week. We have a corporate pass at Lift Local. So we do go at least once a week, but yeah, big time golfer.
Dude, we might have to push some people who need golf lessons. We'll try to push them your way as well. A little side hustle action right
Send them my way. I can't guarantee he'll improve, but we'll have a good time.
That's awesome. Sales, golf, and dude, I would say world traveler, man. I see you go all over the place. You just got back from a Disney cruise, is that right?
Yes, yeah, Disney cruise. And it was top notch. I mean, I've been on other cruises, but Disney, their entertainment, their food, everything, it's the real deal. So I would recommend Disney cruise.
Dude, perfect timing, getting the tan on right before winter hits.
Yeah,
money.
Absolutely.
Well, dude, other than that, like, I'm so excited to have you just because of your experience, one as a sales leader, but then also as an instructor of just being able to help people progress through sales. And that's been one thing I've really learned about you was, yes, you're passionate about sales personally, but I feel like you also have this passion for helping other people be successful. So tell me a little bit about that. Like, what was one of the reasons you wanted to become an instructor, like after hours?
Yeah, I mean, it originally started because I saw a need in my role. I mean, as a sales director, part of my role is recruiting SDRs, and consistently it's a risk hiring SDRs because you don't know if they're going to be good. There's a lot of time that goes into training them. So we ended up hiring an SDR that came from a previous cohort who did really well. And he just seemed much more prepared than other reps that even had been in SDR positions, which is wild. So that originally caught my eye on a dojo. But then on top of that, it just aligned with my passion, which is teaching. I was already running and managing an SDR team, training guys. And so it just aligned perfectly with what I was trying to do, which is get more in the community, help more. And I'm just so glad I did. The experience has been incredible.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit more about that experience. Like, what has that been like, kind of being able to be in a cohort, lead the group, and now you've seen a lot of these people start getting hired and kind of starting their own roles. What's that experience kind of just been like holistically?
Yeah, it's been incredibly fulfilling. I mean, almost every single student that's been in a cohort that I've been a part of has gotten hired. And not only that, some of them have been promoted into management positions. and have become account executives. And some of them I've been teaching even as like an extension after Dojo. So for me, that's incredibly fulfilling is seeing reps gain confidence to ultimately become more successful in their life, both personally as well as in their career. So yeah, it's been really fulfilling for me. On top of that, I just feel like I'm constantly learning. Like that's one thing that's fun about being a leader in the space is that you have to be learning, right? Like you have to stay on top of your game, and you have to always be bringing good content and be bringing good points to the cohorts and such. And so it's helped me progress as well, both in my career and personally too.
Well, I think it's cool you bring up that point because I've felt the same way. Like when we originally started and I was teaching a lot of these cohorts, I feel like I would take more out of it than sometimes you can even give to these students. And I know a leader should always be learning, but as an instructor, sometimes it made me a little nervous. I was like, there's still so many things I don't know. I'm still learning so much from every one of these guys. And I think that's one of the reasons you've been such an amazing instructor is you have this humility aspect, but also this aspect of like, I know what I'm doing and I can help you get to where you want to go. So I think you have a really great balance with that already.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, I definitely know that I have a lot to learn, right? And I think you're right. I feel like I'm growing more than the students most of the time, and they're teaching me things. And so it really is just an honor and a privilege. It's been really just fulfilling. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, one of the things I loved that you told me even a few weeks ago, and you already kind of mentioned it, but once these people get hired, you started to see them get promoted. And so these are people who've been able to come in, make an immediate impact at their company, and then even kind of reach back out for continued mentorship down the road. And I don't know. So how has that felt? Just kind of being able to help someone get to part A, but now helping them to part B and C and D along their career path.
Yeah, it's really fun because ultimately you don't get into tech sales to be an SDR, right? Like that's not the final step. And an SDR, the job itself is hard. I mean, it's a grind. And so it's fun seeing reps progress into further positions because they make more money, they get more flexibility. And that's really what it's about. I think everyone gets into tech to become an account executive or beyond. And so that's been really fun for me. I mean, I even have one student right now that I'm teaching that's his next goal is become an account executive. And so we've set goals for that, and he's basically lined up to be in that position here coming the spring. So yeah, it's fun. I think it's fun to see someone come in and a lot of times come into Dojo, not making a lot of money, not having a lot of confidence. And then within a few short months, they're making significantly more money, have more flexibility. And it just opens up all these doors in their life, which I know you've probably seen. I mean, for me personally, I've seen that, right? And so, yeah, it's really rewarding. And it's cool to see the stories and kind of the paths that everyone takes. So, I mean, and the paths are different for every rep, right? Like some are really interested in leadership. Some are interested in closing. Some are interested in prospecting and they become more like mid-market enterprise SDRs. But either way, there's a lot of growth to be had, and it's fun to see that growth happening.
Oh, dude, I love that. And that I would agree with you. That's one of the reasons why I've been so passionate about not just Dojo, but like the SDR world. Because do I think being an SDR is the end all be all? No. Like there are bigger and better things, but the SDR position opens up so many possibilities.
Oh yeah.
I remember when I was at Divvy, my first year I got promoted like 4 different times because the company was growing so quickly and they just kept hiring people. I kept moving up the ladder. And all of a sudden, I'd been there about 15 months. I had the opportunity to go be either like an account executive for small business, could have gone into the partnership team. I could have gone to be like a SDR manager to kind of work towards that path, or even in transition to like client success, working with past customers, things like that. And I was like, wow, I didn't even know these types of roles existed. And all of a sudden I got options about what I want to do. And so initially I was going to go do partnerships. I just felt like that kind of fit my style, how I work and whatnot. Ended up starting Dojo instead. But I was like, man, this is such a great space. If people can just get in, do the work, it opens up so many so many doors, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of opportunity in tech. I mean, the positions within a tech company go to so many different areas, right? And even if sales isn't the end all be all as well, like the work you learn how to do as an SDR applies in so many aspects of life. For me personally, I feel like being in a tech company, especially a small startup tech company, you really learn the aspects of being an entrepreneur and learning how to own a lot of aspects of your work. And so, yeah, all of that goes into this role of an SDR, right? All kind of starts there.
Oh, dude, super true. So one of the things I want to kind of have you share is kind of your experience of how did you get into tech? How did you kind of initially put that on your radar and then, start to progress down that path?
Yeah. So I went to BYU. I was in school and I had no idea what I was going to do. Which I think is a lot of people. I was taking majors and I didn't really have a clear path. And personally, I felt a little bit lost and I compared myself a lot to my brother who had like a really clear path, my older brother. And while I was at BYU, I had B2C sales roles. So I sold things like credit repair and other things like that. And then the turning point for me was I went and did door-to-door sales for a summer. And when I came back, I dropped out of college and I said, this is really the route that I want to pursue. I didn't know where it would take me, but I said, there's good money here. There's flexibility. So I luckily had enough sales experience to land an SDR position at a company called Solution Reach. And that's where I kind of began that journey for me. So I was an SDR there, became the top SDR in the company, and really just never looked back from that point.
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons I love having you be an instructor is because of your path. Like you have done other things outside of tech sales and you kind of found your way over to it, which I think a lot of our graduates do the same thing.
Yeah.
Like they've had other jobs, they've had other roles, whether it be door to door, whether it be receptionist, whether it be construction, they've done other things. And then they realize, hey, I might try tech sales. Cool part with you is I show this, I brag about you all the time to all of our students, but on your LinkedIn, it literally shows you went from SDR to account executive team lead, maybe a few other spots, all the way up to sales director at the company you're at. In about 6 years, you went from being an SDR to being a sales director. And so I just feel like you get it. You know what it takes to be able to get to that spot. And I feel like it's been really cool to have our students see that this type of growth is possible. Because from an outside perspective, you're like, what does it take to be a VP sales? What does it take to be a director? But you've kind of walked that path and paved the way, I think, for a lot of graduates to start to follow.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. And I agree. I think that's one reason I have a lot of confidence in teaching it, because I've been in the trenches. And even currently, that's something I do is I want to be staying on top of my game. Like I want to be cold calling. I want to be staying on the phones. And so it's given me a little bit of confidence as well, saying I know what it's like. I've been there and I'm still in that spot. Like I still make calls. I still get on the calls with my AEs and SDRs. And so I think it's given a good perspective that this isn't just like hype stuff, that this is real applicable things that are going to be able to apply in their role.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. As you've been coming through the course, like one of the things we've wanted to give you, like a dojo team, to our instructors is, a curriculum to kind of be able to follow and be able to teach and whatnot. But we also have wanted to kind of give you the flexibility to be able to teach what you feel is most important, like what your superpowers are. And so I think you've done an amazing job of being able to like teach through your experience, which I think is so valuable. But as you've been running these cohorts, what have been some of your favorite parts to teach some of these people that are trying to become SDRs themselves?
Good question. I think my favorite thing is the first week of the class. It's really mindset focused. Because I think that's what it takes to be a top performer in a sales role. A lot of it is having an empowering mindset. And a big part of that is practicing extreme ownership, right? Really owning your pipeline, owning your life. And so we start there and it seems that unanimously students find that to be really impactful, is What are the mindsets and the habits needed to be a top performer? So we go over those types of things, extreme ownership in all aspects of your life. And then on top of that, we go over how to build confidence and what that looks like, what confidence really is, like what does it take to be a confident person and a confident sales rep. And that's probably my favorite part. After that, my second favorite part is role plays. Role plays are the only way to really get good at sales and the only way to really practice. And it's a unique thing that Sales Dojo does is we're not just teaching a high level course, but we're actually role playing with you. And I think the most specific, or the specific things we role play that are really helpful are things like tone and then overcoming objections. So those things are really cool to see because those are the types of things I think other courses don't offer is actual real life role plays and practicing that before you get on the phones. And once you do that consistently with these students in the cohort, they go to the real job and they just have a lot more confidence because they're like, I've been practicing this, I've been doing it. It does give them a leg up. So,
dude, I 100% agree with you. One of the things that we see when we go look at companies and kind of look at their sales teams is we barely see any role plays taking place.
It's crazy
within companies. Yeah. I've had so many reps reach out to me once they're hired and they go, dude, we don't do role plays here. I'm like, one, that doesn't surprise me, but two, you can see these students, they're kind of awkward at the beginning when you start doing role plays, but by the end, one of the biggest pieces of feedback that we get is, I wish we could do more role plays. I wish we had time for more role plays. And it's amazing to see the growth that takes place through that application component.
Yeah. I've gotten the same feedback. Yeah. And my peers and just friends in other companies, like it's surprising how little they're doing role plays when it really is the practice of the sales world, right? Like getting on the phones is the game, but role playing is the practice and you have to practice. Like you don't want to be practicing on the phones because then you're missing out on so much opportunity. You know, if you have a really good prospect on the phone, you don't want to have to be fumbling. And granted, that's going to happen, especially early on, but that's the chance a role play gives you is the chance to practice those things and mess up. And so it is important. On top of that, it's important to role play realistically. I think often if you do role play with people or in companies, the prospect in the role play oftentimes doesn't talk like a real prospect. So that's one thing I try to do with our role plays is try to act and talk like a prospect would. That way it's not too easy, so to speak, that they're really having to think and be challenged a bit in those role plays.
Well, I love that you do that because I think one of the biggest things is getting cut off. Like just simulating someone getting cut off and then almost fumbling over yourself and trying to get new words out that you weren't prepared to say. If you can do that, I love how you, like you said, in practice, then you get into the game and you go, I've done this before. I've expected this. I'm ready for it. I've never really thought about it in that type of mentality where the role plays are the practice, the real calls are the game. You got to show up. You got to be ready to go. I love that. I'm using that forever. Yeah,
it's spot on. I think Usain Bolt said, right? Like he's like, you don't see all the hours of work I've done. You only see like that short little seconds of me running. Like, but all of that was me practicing it. And so I think viewing role plays like that helps, and it becomes more motivating that way to actually do them.
I love that. I mean, kind of bringing this back into like a golf sense. One of the reasons we've decided to do role plays and we do our courses live, like there's a lot of other courses that will do a lot of video-based training, which I think is great. I think you can always learn from videos. I think you can always learn from podcasts, but real growth comes through application and it comes through failure. It comes through practice and repetition. And so with our role plays, we kind of treat it just like we treat a golf game where I can watch hundreds of videos on how to golf. In fact, I probably do.
Same.
But the only time you get better is when you go to a course and you take your own swings.
Yeah.
And you kind of put everything you've learned into practice. That application piece is so vital. And so that's one of the reasons we've really stayed with the live courses versus then moving more to a remote video-based. It just develops the skill set so much deeper. And so I love that that's been one of your favorite parts. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, I love it. It's fun.
But another piece I really wanted to dive into was this element of confidence. I agree with you. I think confidence is one of the most important qualities you can have as a human being, and especially in a sales situation. So I'm curious what you've seen has helped, kind of build confidence within your own life, and then some of the things that you've done to help build confidence within reps that are up and coming.
Yeah, great question. I mean, the word confidence actually stems from a Latin word, and I'm not sure how to pronounce it. I think it's fiducia, and it means trust. So if you think of self-confidence as self-trust, basically trusting yourself, then I think that changes your opinion of what it really is, right? Like, to build confidence, it's about building trust in yourself. And the way you do that is by keeping the promises you make to yourself. And so that's what we start off with this class. And some of the homework we do is, let's start doing more hard things and being accountable to that, because that builds some momentum, right? Like the workout, I like working out as well. Like, there's that workout sled pushes, and the first few steps are always the hardest, but once you get it in motion, there's that momentum. And I think that's the case with confidence, is that to build it, you just got to start doing it, and you got to start doing these things to prove to yourself that you can trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, then you're going to have more confidence in every aspect of your life. So I think that's the biggest thing. On top of that, it really does, once again, come back to your beliefs and your mindsets. Having empowering beliefs, because I think really the strongest thing we can have is a strong identity, right? A strong personal identity. So those are some thoughts and things we go over in class about confidence. And really, I've seen that with my reps. I even had an experience recently at Lift Local where one of my AEs, he was underperforming. And so we gave him a choice. He said, you either are going to be on, he's already been on like a performance improvement plan. So he said, you either are going to be fired or demoted to a role that's still a account executive, but basically a full cycle. And it was a lack of, or basically just shot his confidence. And I said, you have a choice right now on what you want to believe and how you want to interpret this experience. And he chose to have an empowering mindset, saying, this is an opportunity for me to grow. And now looking back, he learned so much from that opportunity. He's become a much more high caliber salesperson. But it all came back to what he chose to believe of that experience. And if he was really more like a victim in that situation, it would have absolutely hurt his growth and hurt his confidence. So those are some thoughts I have, is about trusting yourself, keeping the promises you make to yourself, and having some empowering mindsets about who you are.
Yeah, dude. That, what was the Latin word again?
Fiducia.
Fiducia. I got to do some research into that. What a cool root word of confidence, to be able to trust yourself. One of my favorite thought leaders, I guess you could say, his name's Craig Manning. He is a sports or performance psychologist. So he's worked with a lot of different athletes that have gone to the Olympics. He previously worked with the Bucks, things like that. But I was reading his book. It's called The Fearless Mind. And he talks about the difference between belief and confidence. And this has been one thing that has just really stuck with me. He said, belief is believing in yourself to do something that you've never done. Like, I believe I can do it even though it's never been done before. And he said, confidence is knowing that you can do something that you've done hundreds of times. And so he said both are so important. That belief aspect, you need to believe that you can get to a certain point, but that confidence comes through, like you said, trusting yourself to perform, or trusting yourself to keep the promises that you've made. And that has been one of my favorite thoughts. Is like, do I need to fix my belief, or do I need to fix my confidence? And then being able to kind of narrow it down from there. But what a cool story with one of your own reps and kind of seeing that play out.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like the belief aspect is free. I mean, anyone can believe that they can be a top performer, but you're right. The confidence comes from actually proving it, right? Like actually applying it, actually doing those things. So that's a cool thought. I love it.
But yeah, one of my favorite guys, Craig Manning, you should check him out. Someday I'll meet him in person, but
that's cool.
Another thing I think is really important to address is, I mean, things that can kind of hinder our confidence, especially when it comes to cold calling, cold outreach, talking to someone who doesn't know who you are, doesn't know what you do, probably doesn't want to be talking to you right then. That's like a hard job description to say, yeah, I reach out to those types of people. And I think that can almost lead to feelings of anxiety and nervousness, especially when getting on the phone. So what have been some things that you've done to kind of help build confidence or overcome anxiety when it comes to like cold calling or cold outreach?
It's a good question. I think one of the most important things or the place to start, once again, is a mindset. And I think the mindset is detaching from the outcome. Really detaching from the leaderboard and your job when you're calling. And Josh Braun, who was also one of my favorite leaders in the space, he talks about this a lot, but our job when we're calling is to get an appointment. And if we over obsess with getting an appointment, then it creates a lot of pressure for us. Whereas if our thought is more to be present with the prospect and just to really listen to them, then it makes it, first off, more enjoyable, but we're also going to get better results. So detaching from the outcome is step one. And then from there, I think really realizing that they can't hurt you. Or like they literally can't hurt you. I mean, obviously physically, like they can't reach through the phone and hurt you, but they can't hurt you emotionally as well unless you let that happen. And if you really understand that, then you're going to take more risks. You're going to enjoy it more. And I think that's really crucial. So those are a few thoughts. On top of that, once again, is just preparation. Confidence comes from preparation when you've done it a million times. And that's where the role plays comes in. That's where understanding the flow of a cold call comes in, which is what we go over in the class as well, is what is a good cold call script look like? What does a case open look like? I think sometimes when we over obsess about what to say, it creates a lot of anxiety. But when we just have more of a framework of where to go, then that creates a little less pressure for us as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really well said. I know for me, I had that nervousness early on. I initially started as an inbound SDR. So I'm just talking to people that have reached out to us at Divvy. And I was like, this is the easiest job I've ever done. I'm like, people love the product. They're like super excited and everyone's happy. I'm like, awesome. All of a sudden, COVID hits and we just shut down kind of all of our inbound, like all the marketing efforts that were leading to inbound. And we went 100% outbound. So I'd been with the company probably about 2 months. I didn't have any sales experience before this. And like, all right, you're now going to be calling CFOs and it's all cold. And I was like, what in the world am I doing? And I had that anxiety. I remember being in my basement because everyone's home, pumping myself up on like just walking around like, I can do this. And then dialing like 10 people, kind of like begging. I'm like, please don't answer. But eventually I started to kind of get into, like you said, this flow of like understanding how the call goes. I kind of dialed in my own script. I felt like I was trying to copy other people's that just didn't fit my personality.
Yeah.
But once I dialed in my own approach that reflected me as a human being, I felt like I could connect better, understood the flow. And instead of it being the scary moment of them answering the phone, it almost became a challenge. Like you said, a game where it's, okay, it's showtime. How am I going to perform? How am I going to handle this situation? And I got to a point where I actually enjoy cold calling, which is weird because I know so many people hate it and there's a bad stigma around it. But I think people don't like it because they're not good at it and they don't know how to do it properly. And so if you can nail those two things, like I think it can almost become a challenge to see, how good you are in that moment.
That's spot on. Yeah, I think you hit on a lot of big points there. I mean, the challenge aspect is I empathize with that a lot. That if you view it that every single call could change your day, your week, your month, and that you just make one more call, that that's the secret to making money, then it makes it a challenge. It makes it more enjoyable. I mean, I don't know if you watch Wolf of Wall Street, but that's something that we always have said. And a lot of my teams is just pick up the phone and start dialing. Like if you are feeling depressed, if you're feeling anxious, if you're feeling stressed out, just pick up the phone, just start talking to more people. And that's what's great about the role, is that you can always just call more people, and that even if it doesn't go good, there's more people to call. So that helped me too, is like, there's not a limited amount of leads. There's so many people we can reach out to, and just on to the next one. There's a phrase that Mark Weishak coined it. It was SWQ'd-N. It's like an acronym. And it stands for some will, some won't, so what, next.
Dang.
Just like on to the next one, and just kind of gamify it for yourself. Yeah.
I love that. I think I saw this on some of the slides. Was the S, the N3, and then the W?
SW3 or W cubed. And
W cubed.
Yeah.
So what next? Let's go.
Yeah, just on to the next one. And yeah, just keep making dials. I'm the same with you though, Jaron. I love cold calling. I think it's fun. And I think it's a unique opportunity that you just can talk to so many different people. And every single day is different. And so it pushes you to be better. Like every day you can be better, and you can always get better. You can never master cold calling. You can never master sales, because it really is just high level communication. And so you can never be perfect at it. So
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like, honestly, I can take your advice sometimes. I feel like when I was working at Divvy, which was not my own company, if they rejected me or the service, it was like, who cares? What I've seen, when you start your own company and you get no's, it becomes a little bit more personal, because they're saying no to you. They're saying no to your company. They're saying no to your service. We still get no's, like everybody does. And I think just that advice of remembering, detach from the outcome. Like, you're okay. And there's so many ways you can keep improving, take the feedback, and just keep reaching out to new people. And so I've battled that, especially early on. Whenever I'd get a no, it felt very, very personal.
Yeah.
And I've kind of had to try to overcome that over the years. Something I still battle and still fight, but such a good reminder of being able to detach from that. I think that's such good advice.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's spot on. It's helped me a lot. I'm the same way. I think we'll always feel a little bit of that anxiety and like nerves when hopping on the phone, because it's hard to completely detach from that, because we all want to be liked and we all want to be feel special. But I think there's a power that comes with just realizing that you're not that important, that like when you realize that, it makes it easier too. And that these prospects just want to talk to a human. They don't want to talk to a perfect, polished salesperson. They want to talk to just a human. And when you just humanize the interactions a lot, I think it makes it easier as well to not feel anxious. Is that someone says like, hey, I'm busy right now. A lot of times we think, what's the perfect one-liner here? Yeah. But we can just talk to them like a friend, like, oh, no worries. What are you doing? Right? Like, what, are you at like the store? I mean, it's like, sometimes we can just let go and just be ourselves. Easier said than done, especially when you're new to the position, but that helps as well. It's just realizing that we can just be ourselves on the phone, and that's refreshing to prospects.
Dude, I couldn't agree more, because like I mentioned earlier, I feel like I went through that. I had another friend, Mitch Hess, shout out to Mitch, but he had this pitch. It just worked for him. He was super straightforward, super straight to the point, and he'd book meetings. And then all of a sudden I would try Mitch's pitch and I would get hung up on. I'm like, dude, I never get hung up on, but like, what happened? But it just wasn't me. I wasn't being myself. I wasn't being human. But once I kind of dialed it in and was able to be myself, it's like, yeah, people care about, like, they're willing to talk to another human being.
Yeah.
I think when you can gain that respect, gain their permission in different types of ways strategically to proceed, it really opens up the doors to a conversation, which people are normally willing to have.
Yeah.
But if you just pitch your product when they're not asking, that's when you get the bad stigma around sales, is people stepping on your toes, entering your boundaries without you like asking for it. And yeah, of course you get turned off by that. But I think if you can have that human element, you're going to be so much more successful and you're going to feel better at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree 100%. It really, like, just being really eager to pitch is going to be what turns prospects off the most. And And oftentimes it feels like prospects, if you sound too much like a salesman, they're gonna want to hang up. So that's almost relieving as well, that you almost don't want to sound perfect. Like you want to just be yourself and be normal, and you don't need to have the perfect answer for everything,
Man, if anyone has any stories, they should send those to us about just the most human you can be and having it be successful. There's got to be some good, funny stories out there.
That's a podcast idea right there.
Yeah. Best humanized sales approaches. That'd be sweet.
I love it.
But I think like with the industry right now, I feel that there's a huge push for AI. And they always talk about AI is taking over so many elements. And it honestly is. I mean, you look at people's content, you can just generate it so quickly. I see these automated sales softwares of a voice that can even talk to prospects. And I'm like, one, that's amazing. But two, I really don't believe that can stick long term, because people actually care about a human to human connection.
Yeah.
And I don't think that is something that can be replaced. I think you can create software that can say the right words, but that connection of having someone to take care of you and lead you along a path that can help you improve, I just don't think that could ever be replaced.
I'm 100% in agreement with that. Yeah, I think empathy is one thing that's hard to replicate with AI, right? And empathy furthers the decision-making process for a prospect. And empathy is what they need to feel. And that's something that is hard to replicate. So I'm right there with you.
Man. Well, dude, we'll see what happens down the road. Another thing I'm actually curious to get your thoughts on is I also believe that the education space, especially around sales, is really starting to change. Like me personally, and as a company, we've been talking to a couple different universities that are starting to try to build out sales programs. So when you were going through BYU, I'm curious, did you have any types of sales courses, or was that something that you could choose to study at school? What was that kind of like?
Yeah, they did, but honestly, I didn't get into it because I really only was in kind of the general courses. So I didn't get any specialized courses really. I was only doing the general high level courses, but I know they had sales programs, but I don't really know what it entailed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you've spoken at BYU and such, right? I mean, you've been in that space.
Yeah, we've been invited to speak at a couple universities. Some have and are building out like sales degrees that you can study sales, like a 4-year degree. Others have just like sales societies or sales clubs. And maybe you can get like a certificate out of it or things like that. But I think this world of sales is really starting to expand, and universities are starting to see that, hey, this is something that we really want to include and offer our students. And so I think I'm excited to kind of see how that takes place on a university level, be able to get more people studying sales and then helping them see what their opportunities are within, the world of sales, whether it be tech or like some people do door to door, more like service or like big product sales. I don't know. There's a lot out there, but I think it's cool. Universities are starting to make that a bigger focus.
That is neat. Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, being a part of a community in sales is important, and it does also provide you confidence, right? I think that's what cool thing about Dojo is that it's like your first introduction into a sales community, and being a part of something bigger helps you to feel like you have a support system, helps you to feel like you have tools and resources and just mentors, people to reach out to. And all of that is really crucial for your growth.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you mentioning the community aspect, because I feel the exact same way. It is so cool to watch these cohorts watch their peers get hired into different tech companies. And they're so excited. They're like, oh, so-and-so is working at company A, or so-and-so is working at company B. And there's this community of mutual success. Like they want to see each other continue to improve and advance. And like you said, I think sometimes sales can be hard, but when you have other people to go through it with, it can really, really amplify your whole experience. So I totally agree.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for me personally, having mentors has been so big with sales, right? Like people that have been through it already. And that's been a motivation for me, is like, I want to be a mentor to these students. I had mentors throughout early in my career, and like, it really helped me see things in perspective and understand where to go. And so that's something I think is really crucial for new, inexperienced reps, is finding mentors and finding examples and be around them, be close to them, because it helps your growth. It just kind of expedites your growth in the sales world. Yeah.
I love that. Any mentors that you just like really stand out that have impacted you? Like, give them a shout out. What did they do?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest by far is actually the current CEO at Lyft Local. His name's Luke. First off, just the best salesman I've ever met. I mean, he, as a CEO, every month this year has had his own personal sales goal. And what's really cool is he doesn't tell anyone except the leadership team. So no one on the company knows he even has a sales goal. And he's hit it every single month this year. And his goal is the same goal as our account executives most of the time, if not sometimes more. So he's hitting that while also doing all of his other responsibilities. So he's just an incredible salesperson. I think he gave me a really good, mindset early on of what it takes to be a good salesperson. But then on top of that, he's just helped me understanding just how to organize my life in a way that's going to promote success. It really helped me understand what's important. What are my values? What do I stand for? Like, those types of things are really, really crucial.
Dude, I love that. I mean, one of the things we were talking about before the podcast was when you got to Lyft Local, you were, like you said, one of the first sales hires, and they operated in, you said, a full cycle AE motion originally. Mm-hmm. And you went to Luke and you said, hey, I think this SDR model could be even more effective. And you kind of mentioned that Luke didn't initially believe, or he was a little hesitant to implement that. Tell me a little bit about that. I think that's just a cool story.
Yeah, it's interesting because he, as a small CEO, was the CEO and the CFO. So he's viewing things a lot on the financial level too. So to him, he didn't understand, why would I hire someone else, pay them a salary, pay them commission, when our AEs could just do all that. And me being in a tech role previously, I kind of saw it from a different point of view, that the AEs need to be closing. And granted, you're going to always prospect as a sales professional. Like, that's just how it is. But I felt that the AEs would have more bandwidth and more energy to close and to prospect if they were getting demos set to them. So he kind of gave me the A-OK to do it. And so I just scaled it from the scratch, like from the ground up, which was really a cool experience. I mean, creating the cold call scripts for the SDRs, managing the hiring, managing the training. And it impacted our company's growth significantly. We now are sourcing about 60% of our revenue from our SDR team. And our SDR team this year averaged 95% quota attainment. So it's just been a massive increase to the business. And it's really affirmed to me that the SDR position is crucial in the tech space. And that because of that, it's an important position, right? Like, it's a position that it's an honor to be an SDR, and it's not something you should feel like, oh, I want to get to the next step so quickly, but to really enjoy it, because it's a role that is going to set a good groundwork and framework for your sales career.
Yeah, I love that. And how cool is that as a mentor, not only to teach you things, but then to trust you to go make that decision and implement an SDR motion within Lyft Local. I just think that's one of the coolest examples of leadership and, taking responsibility and running with it. I think that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, a good leader's humble, right? And trusts his reps. And I think he's taught me that. He's trusted me to make decisions. And those oftentimes I've made a lot of bad decisions, and, but ultimately that's what a leader does. They trust their reps and trust them that they're going to make good decisions. So yeah, great example to me.
I love that. I had a manager at Divvy when I worked there. His name's Lee. And Lee, he totally changed the trajectory of my career. I'll share this. Lee, he's Asian, and he was a 4th degree black belt in Taekwondo. And so I'd always joke around with him and be like, thank you, sensei. Like, thank you for everything you've taught me, or thank you for your advice, things like that. I just tease him. And when I left Divvy and I started Dojo, one of the reasons we called it Dojo is because Dojo is the Japanese word for a place of learning. Yeah. And if you're learning martial arts, you go to a dojo to learn those skills. And so I started to see that sales is an art. It's something that can be learned and crafted over time. And so we ended up calling our company Sales Dojo because we wanted to create a place that people could come and learn sales. But it's also a tribute to my manager who kind of just impacted me in so many different ways, and not only teaching me the skills I needed to know, but I feel like he was the one who established the belief inside of me that I could actually go and do something outside of being an SDR. And in this case, it was like starting a company. And so huge shout out to Lee. He's been a mentor for me, but like you said, being able to teach you the skills, but then give you the belief that you can go do bigger things than where you're at.
That's cool. I didn't know the story of how you came up with the name. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a great brand. I mean, it's awesome. And I love this whole like immersive experience that a dojo is. So shout out Lee.
Shout out to Lee. We got to get him on here. That'd be sweet.
Yeah.
But anyways, James, I appreciate you taking the time just to come in and on this podcast. I think one of the last things I'd love to hear from you is like, what has helped you personally continue to push yourself? I know that you got different goals that you'll be shooting for, and sometimes it's easy to get bogged down just with everything that goes on in our lives. So what would have been a couple keys that have helped you keep raising the bar and keep pushing?
Yeah, personally, I think a lot of it comes down to living with purpose. Living, knowing what your passion is and knowing what your values are. I think sometimes we're living a little bit aimlessly, and you need to know, well, what's my why? What do I care about? What is my passion? And that's step one. And that's something that for me, has come gradually. Like it didn't just come all at once. And then the second thing is being really goal oriented. I think I've found a lot of fulfillment in setting and surpassing goals.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I find when I'm feeling stuck in my life, it's because that my goals aren't very clear. Like I haven't really written down and put a clear kind of benchmark that I want to hit. And then I think the third thing is just finding passion in who I become in the pursuit of those goals, because the goals it's not really about an end destination, right? Like life is about who you become in the journey. And I find a lot of passion in seeing myself get better. And that's the most motivating for me, is just seeing the growth that I've had each year. So those are some of the things that keep me pushing, is like, I just want to hit my goals, and then recognizing and seeing that in that journey, I just keep getting better. And that's fulfilling. That pushes me to keep going.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. I would say, like, how can you help other people do the same? But I think that same advice, to find your purpose, establish that purpose or that why, and then setting goals. Holy cow. Those are two very common things that are mentioned, but I think when you dial those in, it can totally change the trajectory of where you're going.
Yeah, I agree. And then one other thought too, I think, is just surrounding yourself with people that are better than you. That's pushed me a lot. Being a part of just being, you are who you surround yourself with is so true. And it's funny, I even just saw this story the other day that, and maybe you've heard of this. I feel like it's maybe pretty common, but I just heard it, that a shark in a fish tank can only grow up to like 8 inches, but a shark in the ocean can grow up to 8 feet or more.
I have not heard that. That's cool.
Yeah. It's like this whole lesson that a shark can't outgrow his environment. And it's the same with us. Like, we're not going to outgrow the environment we're in. And so being around people that inspire you and that are where you want to be is going to push you probably more than anything, because you're just going to feed off of their energy. So that for me has been huge. And that didn't really happen in my life till I got into tech sales. Like there's so many killers in the space and so many good people that are better than me, and I want to be around them. So yeah, those are some thoughts.
Dude, I appreciate you bringing up that point. Like, full transparency, I think I see 3 pillars that really come through working in tech. One of them, I think you get paid pretty well. Like, you get paid more, which is nice. Another, I think you have opportunities to like move up pretty quickly at the right company, move into AE positions. I think those are great. But the thing that has driven me to start Dojo, and the reason I've been so passionate about the tech space, is because of what you said. of the leadership, the mentorship, the people that you can be surrounded by.
Yeah.
They can just help you raise your vision of what you're capable of. And I've seen that through students that we've worked with in the past. And I've seen that with students you've worked with in your cohorts when we're talking with them, is they come in and they're like, okay, what is this tech sales thing? It sounds like a cool opportunity. And they take a huge leap of faith to come in and take a class. They don't know me very well. They don't know you very well when they start, but they take an act of faith, they join. And by the time they leave, I think you'd agree with this. The biggest thing I think we could give anyone is helping them see who they can be, like raising their potential, and then giving them the confidence to go out and crush that goal or whatever they want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing the growth that can happen so quickly. I had, I had one. There's one student in the cohort that texted me afterwards, and he said it was one of the most impactful months of his life.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so cool, but props to him, because that can only happen when you're all in, right? And he was all in, and it showed in the course is that he was actively participating. He was doing the assignments, and that's another great lesson to us as well, is that I think for people wanting to get into tech, like that's the first advice or recommendation I'd have is just be all in. Be all in and commit to it. Whether it works out or not is fine, but that's the only way really to grow, is to be committed to this and see that it will be a career for you. As you mentioned, right? There's a lot of opportunity to grow.
Well, I think those are the messages that are so fulfilling. It's like, this works, like people are changing their lives, and that's what just keeps you moving forward. So I just want to say thank you to being an instructor. Thank you for being willing to impact these people's lives. But also, like when we're selling to, like when we talk to companies and potentially bringing them on as partners, maybe I could sell better, but I'm like, we don't teach anything magic, but the people that come through choose to invest in themselves, raise their vision, and put in some serious work behind the scenes. And so I really believe Dojo has been successful for these 2.5 years, not because I've been kicking butt, our team's been kicking butt, but because of the people that come in and, like you said, just go all in. And what a cool opportunity to be an instructor when people are so bought in to what they want to do and what they want to become. So I'm glad that's been such a cool experience.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I mean, it really is inspiring. And then once going back to kind of full circle, I feel like I'm learning more from them than they are from me. And I'm forever grateful for that. And for you, for letting me be a part of it. I mean, it really is a cool thing, and there's just a ton of value in this and in the space. Like, so I'm grateful for it.
Dude, I appreciate that. Well, last thing, where can people connect with you? Like, if they want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to be able to do that?
Yeah, I mean, my LinkedIn is a great place to start. Just all my socials are my name. My last name's hard. It says James. My last name's Amezcua. So. LinkedIn, Instagram, it's just James Amezcua.
Sweet. And then I got to put a plug in. What this brand on your hat? Tell me a little bit about this brand before we close.
Yeah, go follow my clothing company too. This is our brand is Legacy Limited. So this is one of our caps here, and just a streetwear brand. We just started this year, so that's been another fun thing, is just to have a kind of a creative outlet, creative project. So it's been awesome.
Check out
Legacy Limited. Yeah.
Well, dude, thank you for taking the time. This has been one of the coolest podcasts I've done. Thank you for your perspective. I just think you are a rock star, dude.
Thanks, Sharon. You too, man. Thank you.